Hey, hello, everybody. Like she said, my name is Brittany Greenway, and I'm the Community Programs Coordinator here with Legacy Link. And we have just wrapped up our 2025 Senior Farmers Market program. Is anyone in the room familiar with our Senior Farmers Market program? No? Okay, that's okay. So, our Senior Farmers Market program is something that we are able to issue benefits for free fruits and vegetables, fresh Georgia grown fruits and vegetables to seniors within our community. And the way that they qualify for that is to be 60 or older and then meet some annual income qualifications based upon the number of people residing in their household. And again, we were able to serve up to, we served 844 customers or participants in this program this year between June through a couple of weeks ago at 17 different farmers markets, which is really, really phenomenal for us to be able to supplement people's food stuff with that program. So that is a program that we do annually. So each year between the months of May and September, this is a program that's offered all over Georgia. Okay. And why can we offer this program? This program is available through a community partnership with Georgia WIC. And Georgia WIC also offers a farmers market event throughout multiple counties within Northeast Georgia and throughout Georgia altogether for those who are WIC recipients to receive these same benefits of free fruits and vegetables. And the people come to these events where we have a local Georgia farmer. Again, they're issued the benefits based upon their eligibilities, and they are able to pick out that produce on site at these events. Georgia WIC, again, is our community partner. And what is that? Who's familiar with our WIC program? WIC stands for Women, Infant, and Children. And people who are eligible for that are women, infants, and children. If you are pregnant, breastfeeding infants or children under the age of 5 or 5 and under, or if you are a sole caregiver of someone who is 5 or under, you may be eligible for WIC. And again, this is just an awareness campaign, not necessarily something that may fit for you or our particular demographic, but they may have a loved one who does fit in those demographics. Right? Or in today's day and age, we know that there are a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren, and they may not realize that they qualify for certain benefits and things like that. I do have some information. If you want to take any of that with you, you can grab that before you head out. But thank you so much, and I will pass it on over to whomever is next.
Yes, I know it's pretty, fire. See from the handout slide. Liz said I'm still not going to be here at Legacy Link for 20 years. And just so that you know, the SIP is one of the several components of Legacy Link. And we're a little different from all the other components is that other than Tia, who was our coordinator, all of the counselors are volunteers and we serve without pay. And that's good because anytime you counsel or session, anything we do is absolutely free. Not Richard Barnes asking how much does this consultation cost? It's nothing. And you may know that TIP is a program, it's a national program, and it's sponsored by one of the components of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Quality Administration for Community Living. And it's in all the states and several territories. And it's just there, and mostly each state who runs this program delegates the program either to an area agency, an agency, or another nonprofit, or even sometimes state agency. And not only is our advice free, we're actually quite knowledgeable about the Medicare program. At least here at Legacy, our oldest volunteers have been doing this for 25 years. So we've been around, have to periodically take exams to make sure that. So for all of our, unpaid students are entirely confidential. We're required to follow the HIPAA. And one other thing is that, because we concentrate on the, legacy link service area, the 13 northeast counties of Georgia, we get very familiar with some of the local aspects of Medicare. There are local aspects, in spite of the fact that it's a federal program. And speaking of that, I just want to talk very briefly about Medicare and some of the things that you. One thing is this one Medicare counselor over in Athens told me, Medicare thinks it invented the alphabet, and it has an acronym. And so forth all day long. I'm going to six, using plain English, say, wait, bureaucracy. And on their website, they have a list of things and acronyms. Medicare is very complicated. Years and years ago, I studied long ago, I worked for Social Security Administration. I used to have to go in and give talks about Medicare. And every year, there's a whole bunch of things about Medicare that changes each county. And when I first started doing this, I was able to read the held in my hand with the sound very well. But now there's so much complication to the program that now we have to carry around this very fine piece of thread, a 5-page long, and this is just the numbers that change year. So you can see how incredibly complicated it's gotten. That's the organization also the Medicare program is health need services, centers of Medicare and Medicaid services, and they all focus on Medicare policy. But for beneficiaries, the Social Security Administration is a very important component because that's where beneficiaries go get entitled to Medicare Part A or enrolled in Part B. And they're responsible also for setting how much the premium is for individual beneficiaries, whether they have a penalty on their premiums because of late signs ups and so forth. And sometimes there's terminating events where they terminate beneficiaries of Part A or B. So they're very important to beneficiaries interface. One of the things that also always talk about Medicare is what my grammar teacher told Spanish teacher told us in high school, the Spanish grammar, that it has the rule, the exception to the rule, and the exception to the exception. And this fits Medicare absolutely perfectly. So almost for anything I say today, there's going to be exceptions, maybe exceptions. The important thing here is that we study these very, for example, up at my desk, I have a binder and further, then you can only sign up for a drug plan when you're first entitled to Medicare, or each year you take advantage of the open enrollment period to sign up for a different plan or drop. And that's all true. But in the binder I have upstairs, there are at least 25 exceptions. We keep up with those exceptions. And the point here is that if you ever run into a problem with their Medicare, the God said, give us a call. And we go through steps and see if we work around that problem and a perfectly legitimate way. Thirdly, one of the things is that always remember that this study they did in Medicare, what people in Medicare wanted to be called. And they came up with the fact that we want to call people with Medicare. That's one of the stupidest things I've heard, because a Medicare beneficiary is a very legal term. It's defined in statute, in regulations, and sub-regulatory guidance. And when you're a beneficiary, you have a legal connection to this program. And that gives you all sorts of rights and also responsibilities for the program. And just, I have some extra Medicare youth links back there. If you want to pick one way out. But for example, the Medicare federal says every beneficiary, every year has to get a Medicare. That's your legal. And there are dozens of other legal things. So beneficiaries understand that they can apply standing program. And so, you know, and that leads us to the final general point we want to make is that just as there are exceptions for everything the beneficiary gets, whether they feel uncomfortable with it or they're wanting to, Medicare has a full array of appeal steps too. And you can appeal just about any kind of decision, whether it's made by Social Security and Medicare, or by the Centers for Medicare, Medicare, any one of its components. So always remember that something is doing that it doesn't work, it seems like it's disenfranchised in some way, that it always is important, because we study these rights very carefully, because there are just many of them, and it gets a little bit complicated with all the different steps. But again, we're quite familiar. So those are just the introductory remarks. The next thing I'm just going to tell you is that you've got the ability to get this. About a month ago, I was giving a welcome to Medicare presentation on County Library. I have to live on it. And it's the presentation we've given, I've been given for a number of years. So I started thinking that it was sort of a knowledge-based presentation. And we'll go over some of it later today because you have to have a certain base knowledge. And I sort of was thinking, is there a different way to do some way that give people better insight into Medicare? And I came up with this have different colors and because I don't know about the orange. Everyone's looking at the green tree. I know there's been a failure. So they look at the orange. What I decided to do is what are the factors that should have thinking about when they think about their Medicare or for Medicare or want to change something about it. And the reason I gave you looking back on glass and we see that if I want to fit everything that we want to pay. And the other thing is I said Medicare is really, really complicated. There's not every factor involved here, but these are the ones that I've seen through my years of counseling and Northeast League. And it's running down the columns. But one of the things that Medicare beneficiaries or Medicare beneficiaries think about is whether they have other health insurance. And there are quite different types of health insurance that Medicare beneficiary may or may not have. And those are listed here. The ones that we see most are when the Medicare beneficiary or their spouse has health insurance through active employment. And that can even, something also covers a beneficiary. We talk about retirement insurance, sometimes employees. You have the opportunity to sign up for health insurance sponsored by your former employer or maybe a union. Veterans benefits, is if the benefits, look at their Medicare. Medicare is something for people who are actively serving the military or their family or retired, and there are rules about that. The VA program is another advantage that lies in active beneficiary. We have third-party liability because people get in accidents or they have medical malpractice suit, that can affect their Medicare. How they want to do auto insurance. Most people who are not insured through their employer now who come to us with Medicare, they often have what's called a bomb Medicare, or now called here in Georgia, reasons. That depends on Medicaid, which that's probably more complicated than Medicare. There are all sorts of different forms of Medicare, again, that they can benefit on Medicare benefit, how they need to think about it. There's some federal programs, civil service, for postal, still active postal, have their special. Most people I know that a lot of people who work for local, state, or local governments don't necessarily get the social, don't necessarily are entitled to Medicare. Uh, the federal system we have in this country, local entities that can opt out of certain federal programs. So that a lot of people have over to fill the bridge after they fill savings accounts, which have become more common in recent years, can impinge on Medicaid. So, notice these are all factors in the health insurance that can change how a beneficiary might want their benefit. Health status is a big important thing. If a person is disabled, especially if they get disability from Social Security, or maybe their children get Social Security, they have a chronic condition, there are special plans, Medicare beneficiaries, because of the chronic condition. They differ from area to area. Again, something to think about. People who need a kidney transplant or on the SRD, not figure their Medicare here, their rules about that. In fact, the funny, I would say, what's the absolute youngest age someone can have Medicare? I thought a long time about it, going up schools, and the answer is 3 months old. And the reason for that is that if a child is having born with the first of the month, they are immediately diagnosed with ESRD. The rule is if one of their parents, at least one of their parents, is that doesn't necessarily towards the program, they can be covered by Medicare after 2 full months of having ESRD. So that's why the reason. If a Medicare beneficiary institutionalized, that can take effect. Also, this I think is important. A lot of people say, well, we've got a lot of illness in my family, like expect my family, we don't get sick. That's an anticipation of what your health might be. Your family consideration, marital status, living arrangements. We'll talk more about that in certain programs that have helped individuals or families with their Medicare laws. It depends on marriage and whether they live together. Also, dependency. So you have to look at that to really look financially. considerations. Whether or not the persons involved are already getting social security and supplemental security income, whether they are currently or have been employed or self-employed, what their expectations there are, and what their liquid assets are. That is, assets they have that are readily convertible into cash. Location. As I said at the beginning, we're pretty familiar with how Medicare works in our area. For example, we know virtually all the physician's office in Northeast Georgia are Medicare participating physicians, which means that when a Medicare beneficiary is treated by them, they submit a bill to Medicare. Medicare approves a certain dollar amount for their service. They won't charge the Medicare beneficiary any more than that amount was approved by Medicare, which doctors who don't participate are allowed to do up to a certain. And to people who are thinking about traveling a good deal around the United States, around the world, or that they're thinking of moving, maybe outside the legacy link service area, and they need to think in a different way about how they're going to put their next care together. Finally, some personal, what their age is. Are they risk tolerant or risk averse? I always use the example of my wife is very risk averse. In fact, in our homeowners insurance policy, we actually included earthquake insurance. So, earthquakes. Have you ever been down that the gold mine in the Longwood? There are structures in there that are there in the mine simply because the geologists know there are earthquakes in the area, and the mine is structurally constructed too. On the other hand, my dad was very risk tolerant, and he never bought life insurance because he said it's death insurance. I'm not going to get help by it. So we were just lucky. With nothing happened with that for quite a little bit. And this does affect how beneficiaries think about the medical need for non-covered services. You've heard about Medicare Advantage plans are always advertised. They have dental and vision and so forth. A lot of beneficiaries who are desperately needing dental, that's going to change how they think about their managed care versus fee for service. That's the big divide in Medicare. Some people have been in a managed care situation for many, many years, feel very comfortable with it. They're going to feel differently about their Medicare than someone who's been able to go to any doctor they want, whenever they need. And what your current or future healthcare providers, if we always want to talk Medicare beneficiaries, is whether the hospitals and physicians or therapists, they're going to be available in their area. For example, we know Georgia hospital only takes certain Medicare Advantage plans and not others. That's extremely important if someone lives this far of the state. Know what hospital they're going to most typically use and what occurrences with that hospital. So I think when we're talking to Medicare, kind of understanding Medicare, these are sort of the operational, the decisional kinds of factors that you need to think about in this point. The next thing I've always talked about with Medicare beneficiaries is a little bit difficult to talk about in public. People don't like to discuss or give hints about what their is in a public setting. So I always give out the sort of seesaw. I find it quite helpful that Medicare has, there are two areas where income is very impactful on your Medicare. The one is for those individuals and families who have low income. And right now, the numbers for this year is there are assistance, financial assistance to Medicare beneficiaries where there's an individual whose income is below the 1977 scale for the 2664. And we also, if you look at below the 60, these are dollars for people who are getting fixed like pensions, IRA, social security, stuff like that, and not earned income. The beneficiaries don't actually, that has a job, is earning income, or they're self-employed, their own business. The limits are around twice these. And one other factor that, in fact, the limits that beneficiaries can get help is how many dependents they have in the household. So if they have a child that they take care of, or grandchild that they're required for, sometimes those limits can be raised. But we're a little more detailed about the specifics of those programs. It's a federal program and the other is the state, Medicare state. For the other, the seesaw, there are certain for high income earners. And what Medicare does, they look at your past 3 years prior to the current year. So, put aside at Medicare in 2025, so the curve is going to look there 2023. Comment reported on their tax return above the limit shown here. And the income, the definition that Social Security uses to make a decision, and they're the ones that make the decision about this, because they have all the IRS information. Medicare doesn't have that. Is there a federal adjustment gross plus any non-taxable interest that you earn from that year? So those amounts are above here. There are going to be surcharges that are applied both to your Medicare Part B premium and also the Medicare Part B premium. And again, there are a whole bunch of exceptions, particularly for people who were working in 2023, but are now retired. There's an exception for that, and we can help people with that exception. There are other exceptions where a marriage was dissolved, or a spouse died, or something like that, or the couple was no longer living. And again, we can help beneficiaries file the proper paperwork. Use of security makes, just as an example, these high income surcharge called IRMAs, which is the acronym for income related monthly adjustment. I always tell a beneficiary that's just bureaucratic dollar fees who are surtax. So, you may have to do this. That's what we talk about, and we're not going to group in detail about Medicare. If we do Medicare presentation for getting away with the operational subject matter, is we use this 6-column presentation that we call Medicare Advance. And what it does is you see down on the side of the grid, we talk about a number of different subjects, and then across the grid, we talk about them in relationship to each of these parts of Medicare. And as I said, Medicare has its own alphabet, and so we do their alphabet as A, B, B. Talk about it. Just very briefly going through this. Medicare Part A is, as we always say, the simplest part of Medicare, because it only covers services if you're going into the hospital as an inpatient. And you have to be actually admitted by the hospital. And typically that means you stay more than one night. Some people go in and they're kept overnight, and they're not necessarily an inpatient. But it does cover any inpatient stay, and then subsequently, a beneficiary may go to the skilled nursing facility, which is a very good level of care, and sometimes even the same building as them. And they're also entitled to home health visits, once they go home, maybe therapy or one occasional treatment for Medicare Part A does not cover any kind of routine nursing home care. That's the responsibility of Medicaid. I can't get that mixed up. Medicare, how much of the cost, most people already get their Medicare Part A, because they've already paid for years of deduction from their, which is, part of the FICA tax. Is there a late fee of Medicare? Very, very rare. No high income surcharge applies to it. And then the deductible. The way Medicare goes, it doesn't do an annual deductible for the inpatient stay. But what it is, if you go into the hospital as an inpatient, you begin what's called a benefit period. And then until you're out of any kind of health care institution for 60 days, you're still in that benefit period, and you only owe this one deductible, which is $1,676. Once you've been out of an institution, like a hospital, skilled nursing facility, nursing home for 64 days, if you're reading these schools as an inpatient, a whole new benefit period starts, and you owe the deductible all over again. So at least in theory, you can pay the deductible 4 or 5 times a year. The co-insurance is, once you're in, you pay your deductible, the next 60 days of hospital care are on Medicare. And if you're in the hospital longer than that, co-insurance for longer stays. And there's even a lifetime reward. And yes, you can get help with it. No mention the low income. The one that can help with Medicare Part A is the Medicare Savings Program or Medicaid. Both of them can help with the cost of your Part A. And you're enrolled through the Social Security Administration. And most people, almost everybody, enrolls around their 65th birthday, preferably. Almost always, some exceptions. For example, if you have an HSA, if you want to go ahead and enroll in Medicare, no matter what kind of other insurance you, and because A doesn't cost for anything, you can supplement the other insurance. Part B is probably the most complicated part of Medicare. So, and it pays for any kind of doctor, physician, doctor, box, ambulatory surgical centers, really awful number of centers today. The verbal medical equipment, preventive services, a very important part of Medicare, and even home health. And what does Medicare Part B not cover? It has all sorts of rules of how many times you can get a service in a different time period. And it doesn't cover any kind of routine dental or vision services. And we'll talk more about that. No cosmetic services, seminars, beneficiaries don't generally have to worry about the frequency of the difference because there's a provision in Medicare that says simply that if you go to the doctor, you're presumed not to know these rules. For example, I used one day, I said my car doctors, they thought my heart beat was a little irregular. It said, George, you really need to wear one of these monitors so we can really figure out what's going on. And I said, okay, great, try it on. I said, oh no, you gotta go turn it on. Probably today, the Medicare today. The important thing is that they know the rules and you don't. And if you ever get a service where you weren't told about you should be getting this because you don't have to pay. Medicare vendors don't have to pay for that. Medicare Part B is expensive, it costs $185 a month. If you're getting your social security benefits, it has to be deducted, then if you're not, you can make other arrangements to pay for it. There's a late enrollment period. If you don't sign up for Medicare Part B, when you're first 65, unless there's an exception, if you don't sign up and wait, there will be a late enrollment penalty. Deductible of $257. Oh, the high income surcharge does apply, we said to B and D. And again, the way it works, when you go to a doctor, and get a Medicare covered service, they'll send the bill to the Medicare. They'll decide how much that service was. And then you're responsible for the deductible, 257 this year. And then Medicare from then on pays 80% of the bill and you'll pay 20%. And again, the law says that that's basically it. You can get help with this, the Medicare savings program, which is part of the Medicaid program in Georgia, can help you pay the Part B premium, and for some, a very low, maybe their co-insurance is, and again, just Medicare Part B, and again, you go to Social Security for the brand recipient. Part B is the newest parts, it's only been around 20 years now, and it covers generic and brand name medicines and some immunizations. It doesn't cover over-the-counter meds. It doesn't cover the function of opioids, the very restricted. Also, weight loss drugs are not covered. Although I think there's some exceptions, very injectable weight loss. Uh, what Medicare Part D does is Medicare contracts in each state with a different variety of insurance companies, pharmaceutical benefit managers to provide the Part D benefit. And a beneficiary has to join one of those we call standalone prescription companies to get their Part D. And the premiums that they charge are very different depending on which plan. There's one plan now in Georgia that has no premium, and one plan premium is only $150. They're all in between there. There is a late, and there is a surcharge if income is of the individual been high in the past year. The deductible plan, and it's this year up to $590 per year. And the co-insurance, generally speaking, is about 25%. And this year, for the first year, once a beneficiary gets $2,000 of out-of-pocket, then they're home free. They don't pay anymore for the
Is the standalone rate from 0 to 115 and 80, is that monthly or annually? And same thing for Part B and Medigap.
yeah, that's the free. And also the fourth, and then the free. So there is a program, again, run by the federal government, and you apply to Social Security for it. They can help low income beneficiaries get the risk of growth. And it can, depending on your level of income, and it's called extra. It can pay the premiums, the deductibles, and it will limit the co-insurances as I showed here. And you have to be either in Part A or B to be with Medicare. And typically beneficiaries enroll the month they turn 65 and the 3 months they turn, or each year they're given the opportunity to look at the new plans because the plans change every calendar year and go over that. most common part of Medicare is Part C, which you hear of as the Medicare Advantage plans. And you see advertised constantly as we come up on the annual enrollment period in October, you'll see and hear all sorts of ads. But all that does is combine the Part A and B services, and usually the drug services, into one composite managed care ball of wax, you would say. And again, it's like the Part D prescription drugs, standalone prescription drug plans, Medicare contracts with insurance companies and those things we manage. So figure a managed care package that has to include all the A and B services that the original Medicare, fee for service Medicare covers, and also typically the drug plans are in there. And again, they have their own individual instructional drug plan within each of these managed care plans. And again, typically, there are fees for premiums for some of it. Oh, I said before, the dental vision, so consideration, the beneficiaries need to take. Because many of the Part C plans offer hearing aids, dental services, and vision, eyeglasses, and so forth, to one degree or another. And this makes it very popular. Beneficiaries. And right now, about more than half of beneficiaries, people who are becoming beneficiaries of the Asian Medicare, are electing to go into Part C of Medicare. Like any managed care, managed care arrangement, there are only certain doctors and hospitals that, will take certain, Medicare Advantage plans. So, for example, here in Paul County, the Northeast Georgia Medical Center takes three of four bad care company plans, Cigna, Aetna, United Health, and but not any others. So if you are in a plan that's not, accepted by the hospital, then you're gonna have trouble getting, hospital services unless you go somewhere else. So one of the very important considerations for beneficiaries is making sure that their plan and their hospital takes the plan and their physician. The way they work is, again, you typically have, well, you often have monthly premium, although they're quite frequently without that. Part B and D surcharge will apply even if you're managed care. The deductibles, they usually are typically both of medical services and a drug deductible. That range from 0 to 1,000 for medical and up to 590. And they typically charge every time a beneficiary gets a service, the Medicare beneficiary managed care has to pay a co-insurance, but a co-pay to the physician's office or the hospital. And you have to have Part A and B to join one of those. And typically, again, people join about their 60th when they first get Medicare, or they can change every year. Very briefly, Medicare, for people who don't sign up for Medicare Part C, many of them consider a Medigap plan, which is simply a medical policy issued by an insurance company. About 40 of them or so that have the Medigap plans that are approved here in Georgia. And they typically they never cover the Medicare Part B deductible, but they usually cover that Part A deductible for those who go in as an inpatient. And depending on the particular type of policy, will protect the beneficiary against that 20% co-insurance in Part B once they've met their year and cover their Medicare Part A inpatient deductible, which is pretty sick. And generally speaking, I won't go into more detail about it, except the premiums can vary very widely. But one thing people need to always keep in mind, beneficiaries, is that for any given type of policy, and there are only a couple of types of popular beneficiary, no matter who sells that policy, uh, it gives the same benefits no matter what the premium is. The premiums can vary by a factor. So we always encourage beneficiaries to live with at least
Yeah. So with the Medigap, does that go and cover the deductible Part A, for instance, elements? So you said you exactly.
Yeah.
That.
policy covers, you know, infection, no matter how many times you get it. And what they work is, what happens is the donor will Medicare, this coverage is not, this is the price. They'll pay the 8%, and typically, almost always, when you send it over to the Medicare insurance, they have to, whatever Medicare is covered, they have to pay. And typically, they pay that 20%, and the deductibles. But that's a talk just a little bit about where people can figure out where they can get a doctor with base Medicare or Medicaid. About quality of services. Always find it and go on Medicare.gov, the official government website, Medicare.gov. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, say find provider. And you can go in there and say, well, I'm looking for example, a physical therapist in zip code 30581. And it will come back with all the Medicare participating in that or around that zip code, who take Medicare. And it will do that for just about any type of medical service. Also, the people, as I indicated, when they're signing up for Medicare Advantage, they need to make sure that the plan will be taken typically by their physician. They have a physical therapist, they go to an orthopedist. You can go on the website. That much better is on the website or calling the physician, because the information is changing from time to time. And it's best to call the physician office. So do you take such a form that, you know? But you, like I say, also use Medicare website, get an idea, especially if you're local. They can more people, which I can do. Services, nurses and Medicaid, so you look at this like, it highlight a website that the Department of Community Health of Georgia runs that helps look for individual type providers that take Medicaid. And this website not only includes people who might take Medicare and Medicaid, has types of providers on there that Medicare doesn't recognize, but the state realizes are important to people from the people. I think it's very important. One thing you could also know is that if someone has a problem with the quality of the Medicare services or even the Medicare services, there are several places they can go to lodge a complaint and maybe get it done about. But here in Georgia, there's an outfit in the Department of Community Health called the Healthcare Facility Regulation Division. And they actually are the people who go out and decide whether a hospital meets the standards for Medicare, Medicaid participation, or whether an ambulatory surgical center is up to speed with state requirements and so forth. And so that if you have a complaint against an institutional providers in Georgia, you can contact them on the website, the phone numbers here, complain about the service and see what they'll do about it. At the bottom, I talk about complaints about healthcare professionals such as pharmacists and whatnot, are just by a different part of the state, and the information on how to contact them is at the bottom. So for institutional, the state survey agency, the Department of Community Health, and for the non-institutional, the consumer protection. You also know that it's good that Medicare benefits and complain about the quality of care that they got in a Medicare setting. And that's called, it's sort of mind blowing, the beneficiary and family center quality care and organization, which is an institute, a company that Medicare contracts with, has physicians and nurses and whatnot. And the information is that if you're a Medicare beneficiary with quality care, like, you can go to these people just about anything, complain about it. And they have a procedure which is really new. They go to contact the provider of services directly and try and work out something right away through business dedication. So also keep that in contact information. Last but not least, Bill, with this is the various kinds of things that we help and we have our contact here. So if you run into Medicare beneficiary, or you're a Medicare beneficiary, or uncle or whatever has an issue, they live in one of the 13 counties up here, just call us direct, and we can assist you with that issue. Any questions? I'm sure.
So, I just started getting my social security benefits on the 65 next February.
Okay.
So November 1st, will I have to, so now the social security has been consistent, will I just get the benefit?
When did
Yeah, last one.
Okay. You should get your Medicare. You said it was 65.
February 23rd.
Okay, so February 1st, you should get your card in November. No, actually, sort of either at the end of October. No. But if you don't get it, yes. Wait, if you're not getting your social security benefits,
Let's get it. Be at the same time. Yeah.
those are under 65 of your funds.
How do we open 65 because
Okay, so you in effect apply for them. They probably will submit your form and back to your birthday.
of the
You think
that was triple check. Yeah, I remember that. I remember specifically knowing that was.
if you do that both at the same time, yes. It's only with after you've been established as a one. Then we're going to part A, and then you have a choice really.
Which brings me to the second part. If I wanted to sit down with somebody like you here, because I've got 6.5 weeks before November 1st. So I'll be making some decisions in the next less than 2 months. Am I able to do that? Is that?
I'm here.
Double did that at us. All right, so I know for some of you, first of all, it's so much information, and every time I hear a presentation, I'm like, thank you. So for those of you who it does not impact correctly, great opportunity for taking the information, communicating with your personal results, right? So thank you for coming, and thank you for a great presentation, so much information. Lots of mind-boggling information. And for those of us, that this would really, it's so hard. We needed this. So thank you. Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
She wants to speak also with you personally.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to talk with you.
Thank you. Okay, so, anybody or everybody from there? Because just yesterday, another volunteer studio was closed, but they need volunteers to do virtual convention tour. So if you were unable to get a volunteer slot, send me an email, let me know. By the time we can get back to the office, and many things are doing transpire. Send me an email, I'll send you the information. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
If anybody does have any questions about their Medicare, on Medicare benefits, you guys can call and schedule. Our volunteers are amazing, and they can meet you guys in, sit down with you if you want one-off like that.
And I will tell you that, I mean, you being Atlanta, your CEO up there, actually started at Legacy Link as an intern, and she answered the phones for the intake. We asked her.
We've had a lot of.
Become CEOs. Yeah, she has a special place in her. All righty, thank you.
Yes.
I see. Yeah. See.
You first. In theory, that's the course, 1 day. You will, for the next 60 days, you'll pay. And as I say, it's simply, you go through like that's. But
You've heard that, right?
So they have to pay that 60 days. No, because you're the only one doing it. Then it's something close to that. But you don't never afford it.
You'll be. It's not a volunteer. So who's the education?
At first, services.
Out
Where
there.
it
You have to be able to buy films. It is a shocking. Right, remember I said to you, yeah, I was.
Yes, but the cost, that's what he says. I'm not sure if it's right. He said- Okay. Almost every time. Right.
He was told that she would have to wait. Even when I was hearing that.
The hospital bill. Thank you.
Is it great?
That's why you have to be careful.
I'm sorry. With
That's the same. It's great. You want to study?
well,
So,
we're keeping.
no. It depends on a lot, these. Separately. So. They are pursuing.
You know,
Policies. What policies? They do not promote safety and it's always a
this. Yeah, so we. Rain, yeah, when. So. But you don't need to afraid of it.
Shit. Dad, dad just about.
Uh,
He said educate place. And so it's. You.
well,
Yes.
I'm using probably here this problem. But we have. So,
Yeah, absolutely. But I would love it.
oh. So we typically do student loans. You. Get one. For you.
So we don't do this one, college, this one.
I'm fine. Did we get your jacket? But we will definitely give you a call back. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Or, he said, if. You know that, I just have really specific down there questions on. Thank you.
Oh, that woman probably mad at me, Christine, you know, from my old job, I know. God, Jesus. It's, yeah, it's.
And one of the places I give people, all the people, get them, this, this pattern. Even if you know, that is a step. I don't understand how to do it. Wondering, the job is a lot. But she, and not she.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I didn't like them. Most of them there, but you need some. And it's. Her work, she's 21 years old. Fresh out of college. And my grandmother, her group, 5 years old, just scared. Stuff.
Do I take anything or anything? No.
Bye.